The hum of anticipation filled the air at New York Fashion Week, where the pulse of creativity beat like a drum. The Jacob K. Javits Convention Center buzzed with the clink of champagne glasses, the rustle of silk, and the frenetic whispers of industry insiders. Runways stretched like arteries pumping life into the fashion world's heart. Among the chaos, Zoe Parker stood backstage, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the hem of a crimson gown. An African-American designer in her late 20s, Zoe's deep brown skin glistened under the fluorescent lights, her coiled hair pulled into an elegant updo that framed her determined expression. Her bold, vibrant, and unapologetically original designs had already begun to turn heads in the indie fashion scene. But tonight was her first major showing. Tonight, she was stepping into the lion's den. Zoe's collection, Threads of Resilience, was a love letter to her heritage, weaving patterns inspired by African textiles with modern structured silhouettes. Each piece told a story of strength overcoming and claiming space in a world that often tried to shrink her. She glanced at her team, a small, loyal crew of seamstresses and assistants who'd worked tirelessly to bring her vision to life. "This is it," she whispered to herself, her voice steady, despite the knot in her stomach. No turning back. On the other side of the runway, Ryan Foster sat in the front row, his piercing blue eyes scanning the crowd. A white American billionaire in his early 30s, Ryan's fair skin and neatly trimmed blonde hair gave him the polished look of a man who belonged in boardrooms and on magazine covers. As the CEO of Foster Couture, one of the largest fashion conglomerates in the world, his presence alone could make or break a designer's career. His tailored navy suit hugged his athletic frame, and his easy smile masked the calculating mind that had built an empire. Ryan wasn't here to admire. He was here to scout. And Zoe Parker's name had been circling his radar for weeks. The lights dimmed, and the first model stepped onto the runway. Zoe's collection exploded into view. Vivid golds, deep indigos, and fiery reds danced under the spotlights, each garment a testament to her skill. The audience gasped as a model in a floor-length gown with intricate beadwork glided past the fabric, catching the light like a sunset over the savannah. Ryan leaned forward. His fingers steepled his gaze, locked on every detail. This wasn't just talent. This was a revolution. Zoe Parker was a force, and he wanted her in his orbit. Zoe stepped out for her bow as the final model struck a pose, and the crowd erupted into applause. The spotlight caught her, illuminating her proud smile and the sweat on her forehead. She was radiant, her dark skin glowing against the stark white backdrop of the runway. Ryan stood clapping slowly, his eyes never leaving her. He saw potential not just in her designs, but in the fire behind her eyes. She was someone who could shake up his empire, and he wasn't about to let her slip away. Backstage, Zoe was swarmed by reporters and well-wishers, but her focus was on her team. "We did it," she said, pulling her lead seamstress Amara into a hug. Amara, a fellow African-American woman with a knack for precision, grinned back. "You did it, Zoe. This is your moment." But the moment was cut short when a tall figure approached his presence, parting the crowd like a blade. "Ms. Parker," Ryan said, his voice smooth as velvet, "your collection was extraordinary. I'm Ryan Foster, Foster Couture. I'd love to discuss a potential collaboration." Zoe's smile faltered. She'd heard of Ryan Foster, everyone had. The man was a titan, but his reputation was a double-edged sword. Brilliant, yes, but ruthless in business. His fair complexion and easy charm didn't fool her. She'd seen men like him offering deals that sounded sweet, but came with chains. "Thank you, Mr. Foster," she said, her tone polite but guarded. I'm flattered, but I'm not looking for partnerships right now. My brand is independent, and I intend to keep it that way. Ryan's smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed slightly, a glint of challenge in them. Independence is admirable, but the industry can be brutal. Foster Couture could offer resources distribution and a global stage. Think about it. He handed her a sleek black business card, his fingers brushing hers for a moment longer than necessary. Zoe took it, her jaw tight, and nodded curtly. She wasn't here to play games with billionaires. As Ryan walked away, Zoe tucked the card into her pocket, her mind already racing to the next task. But the night wasn't over. Hours later, as she packed up her collection, Amara rushed over, her face pale. Zoe, you need to see this. She held up her phone, displaying a grainy photo on a fashion gossip blog. It was one of Zoe's designs, a dress from her upcoming spring collection, one that hadn't been shown tonight. The headline screamed, "New designer's work, leaked copycat or coincidence." Zoe's heart sank. That design was locked away in her studio, accessible only to her inner circle. Someone had betrayed her. Her first instinct was to suspect Ryan Foster. His offer had come too quickly, too smoothly. But why would a man of his stature risk his reputation on a small designer like her, unless this was bigger than she realized? The next morning, Zoe's phone buzzed with notifications. The leak had gone viral, with blogs speculating that a rival brand, Luxe Atelier, had inspired their new line with designs eerily similar to hers. Luxe Atelier was a powerhouse known for swallowing up smaller brands and spitting out their bones. Zoe's inbox was flooded with accusations of plagiarism, despite her being the victim. She paced her cramped Brooklyn apartment, her dark eyes flashing with anger. This wasn't just a leak. It was sabotage. She called Amara, who was already digging into the issue. Amara said, "I checked our studio's security logs. Someone accessed the design files 2 nights ago after hours. The IP traces to Manhattan, but it's encrypted. We need a professional to crack this." Zoe's mind went to Ryan's card still sitting on her kitchen counter. Foster Couture had the resources to investigate something like this, but trusting him felt like stepping into a trap. Still, she couldn't let Luxe Atelier destroy her before she'd even begun. She dialed Ryan's number, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "Mr. Foster, we need to talk. I want answers about my designs." Ryan's response was calm, almost amused. "Ms. Parker, I assure you I'm as curious as you are. Why don't you come to my office in Soho tomorrow? We can sort this out." Zoe hung up her gut, telling her this was a mistake. But she was out of options. She glanced at the leaked design on her phone, her heart aching at the thought of her work being stolen. This was her legacy, her story woven into every stitch. She wouldn't let anyone, Luxe Atelier, Ryan Foster, or otherwise, take it from her. The next day, Zoe arrived at Foster Couture's Soho headquarters, a sleek glass building that screamed wealth. Her dark skin stood out against the minimalist white decor, and she felt the weight of every stare as she walked through the lobby. She wore one of her designs, a tailored blazer and skirt in bold ochre, a statement of her identity in a foreign space. Ryan greeted her in his office, his fair features softened by the morning light streaming through the windows. "Ms. Parker," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Let's get to the bottom of this." Zoe didn't sit. She stood arms crossed, her voice sharp. "My designs were leaked, Mr. Foster. And now, Luxe Atelier is claiming them as their own. You're the only one who's approached me recently. Care to explain?" Ryan raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "You think I'd sabotage a designer I want to work with? That's not my style, Zoe." The use of her first name caught her off guard, but she didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his blue eyes studying her. Luxe Atelier has a history of playing dirty. I've seen it before. Let me help you. Zoe hesitated. His offer sounded genuine, but she'd learned not to trust men who promised the world long ago. Still, the evidence was mounting against Luxe Atelier, and Ryan's resources could be her only shot at fighting back. Fine, she said, her tone clipped. But if I find out you're involved, I'll burn your empire down myself. Ryan chuckled, a low, warm sound that made her pause. I wouldn't expect anything less. Let's get to work. As they began digging into the leak, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a game much bigger than herself. Ryan's world was one of power and secrets, and she was an outsider, a black woman in an industry that rarely made room for her. But she wasn't here to play by their rules. She was here to rewrite them. The Soho office of Foster Couture was a cathedral of glass and steel, its open-plan design buzzing with the energy of assistants darting between desks and mood boards pinned with fabric swatches. Zoe Parker navigated the space purposefully, her ochre blazer a vibrant contrast to the muted tones around her. She'd agreed to meet Ryan Foster here to investigate the leak of her designs, but every step felt like walking a tightrope. Her collection, Threads of Resilience, was under attack, and Luxe Atelier's blatant theft had left her reputation teetering on the edge. Ryan had promised answers, but Zoe wasn't naive enough to believe his help came without strings. Ryan greeted her at the entrance to his private office, his navy suit as impeccable as ever. Zoe, he said, his voice warm but measured. Thanks for coming. I've got my team pulling every string to trace that leak. He gestured to a sleek conference table where a tablet displayed security logs and encrypted IP addresses. Zoe nodded, her expression guarded. She wasn't here to make friends, but to protect her work. They sat, and Ryan's lead tech analyst, Priya, walked them through the findings. The IP address, used to access your studio's files, traces to a server in Midtown. Priya said, her fingers flying across the tablet. It's a shell company, but we're working on unmasking the owner. The encryption is sophisticated. Someone with deep pockets is behind this. Zoe's mind raced. Luxe Atelier had the resources, but why target her? She was a minor player, barely a blip in their empire. Unless this wasn't about her designs, it was about sending a message. What about the physical breach, she asked. Someone got into my studio. Cameras, logs, anything? Priya hesitated. Your studio's security system is basic. The cameras were turned off for exactly 12 minutes during the breach. No fingerprints, no traces. This was professional. Zoe's jaw tightened. Her Brooklyn studio was her sanctuary, a cramped space filled with sketches, fabric bolts, and the hum of sewing machines. The thought of someone violating it made her blood boil. She glanced at Ryan, who was watching her with an intensity that unnerved her. You're awfully invested in this, she said, her tone sharp. Why? Ryan leaned back, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. I told you, Zoe. I see potential in you. If Luxe Atelier tries to crush you, they're also challenging me. I don't like losing. His confidence grated on her, but she couldn't deny his logic. Luxe Atelier had been gunning for Foster Couture's market share for years. If they saw Zoe as a pawn in that game, she needed Ryan's resources to fight back. Fine, she said, but I'm not signing anything. This is my brand, my rules. Ryan's lips twitched into a half smile. Noted. Let's focus on the leak first. Priya, keep digging. Zoe, I'd like you to review some documents with me. They might give us a lead. He led her to a corner of his office where a stack of folders waited. As they sifted through contracts and acquisition proposals, Zoe's eye caught something: a draft agreement between Foster Couture and a smaller brand that had mysteriously gone bankrupt last year. The terms were predatory: complete creative control to Foster Couture, with the original designer reduced to a consultant. Her stomach churned. Was this Ryan's plan for her too? She pushed the folder toward him. What's this? You buy out small brands and strip them bare. Ryan's expression didn't falter. That was a failed deal. The designer made bad calls, and the market didn't favor them. I don't force anyone into anything, Zoe. They come to me. She didn't buy it. And what happens when they say no? Their designs end up leaked like mine. Ryan's eyes darkened, but his voice stayed calm. You're jumping to conclusions. I'm not your enemy here. But if you want to play detective, let's do it right. I have a contact at Luxe Atelier who might talk, but it's off the record. Zoe hesitated. Every instinct screamed to walk away to handle this herself. But the clock was ticking, and the fashion world was already whispering about her stolen designs. She nodded. Set it up. But I'm coming with you. The meeting was arranged for that evening at a dimly lit bar in the meatpacking district. Zoe arrived first, her tailored dress, a bold emerald green that turned heads. She sipped a tonic water, her eyes scanning the room for threats. Ryan joined her, his presence commanding attention as always. Their contact, a nervous junior exec named Ethan, slid into the booth across from them. I can't stay long, Ethan muttered, glancing over his shoulder. Luxe is watching everyone. What do you know about the leak? Zoe asked, her voice low but firm. Ethan fidgeted. I heard rumors. Someone high up at Luxe paid for access to your files. They wanted to scare you out of the industry before you got too big. That's all I know. Who? Ryan pressed his tone sharp. Ethan shook his head. I don't have a name. But check the fashion blogs. They're being fed stories to bury you. Look for payments from a shell company called Vantage Holdings. Zoe's mind raced. Vantage Holdings matched the shell company Priya had mentioned. This was bigger than a single leak. It was a coordinated attack. She glanced at Ryan, searching for any sign of deception, but his face was unreadable. Thank you, Ethan, she said, sliding him a tip under the table. Stay safe. As Ethan slipped away, Ryan leaned closer. We need to move fast. If Vantage is funding this, they'll cover their tracks soon. Zoe nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The bar's low lights cast shadows across Ryan's face, and for a moment, she saw something beyond the polished billionaire. A flicker of determination mirrored her own. But she couldn't trust him, not yet. I'll handle the blog, she said. You focus on Vantage. And Ryan, if I find out you're playing me, you'll regret it. He chuckled, unfazed. You're not the first to threaten me, Zoe, but you might be the first I'd hate to disappoint. Over the next few days, Zoe dove into the fashion blogosphere, tracking down the sources of the smear campaign. She found a pattern, anonymous tips, all linked to Vantage Holdings flooding sites, with accusations that her designs were unoriginal. Meanwhile, Ryan's team uncovered financial records tying Vantage to Luxe Atelier's parent company. The evidence was mounting, but wasn't enough to clear her name. Then disaster struck. A new blog post went viral this time, with photos of Zoe's unreleased designs alongside Luxe Atelier's latest collection. The similarities were undeniable, and the narrative was brutal. Zoe Parker, rising star, or plagiarist. The comments section was a cesspool of vitriol, questioning her talent, integrity, and place in the industry. Zoe sat in her studio, staring at the screen, her hands shaking. This wasn't just about her designs anymore. It was about her identity, her right to exist in this space. She called Ryan, her voice tight. They're destroying me. I need to know if you're in this or not. Ryan's response was immediate. I'm not Zoe. I swear it. Meet me at my office tonight. I have something you need to see. Against her better judgment, Zoe went. Ryan was waiting with a USB drive. He said my team cracked the encryption, plugging it into his laptop. It's not just Luxe. There's someone else pulling strings, someone with a personal grudge. Look at this. The screen displayed an email chain, cryptic but damning. The sender, hidden behind an alias, had orchestrated the leak and the smear campaign. One line stood out: "Make sure Parker's out of the game before Fashion Week ends." The email was addressed to a name Zoe didn't recognize, but Ryan's face darkened as he read it. "Who is it?" Zoe demanded. Ryan hesitated, then met her gaze. "I have a guess, but we need more proof. Please work with me, Zoe. We can stop this." Zoe stared at him, her heart pounding. She was too deep caught between a billionaire she couldn't fully trust and an enemy she couldn't yet name. But one thing was clear: she wasn't backing down. Her design, story, and resilience were worth fighting for. And if Ryan were her ally or her adversary, she'd find out soon enough. The air in Zoe Parker's Brooklyn studio was thick with the scent of fabric dye and the hum of sewing machines, but today it felt oppressive. The viral blog post accusing her of plagiarism had spread like wildfire, and the fashion world was buzzing with whispers. Zoe stood at her drafting table, sketches of her following collection scattered like fallen leaves. Her Threads of Resilience line was supposed to be her breakout moment, but now it was a battleground. Luxe Atelier's stolen designs had painted her as a fraud, and the anonymous email Ryan Foster had shown her hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Someone wanted her out of the game, and Zoe was determined to find out who. She glanced at her phone, rereading Ryan's email. "Make sure Parker's out of the game before Fashion Week ends." The words burned into her mind. Ryan had promised to dig deeper into the sender's identity, but trust was a luxury Zoe couldn't afford. His polished demeanor and billion-dollar empire made him a suspect as much as an ally. Still, she needed answers. Ryan's resources were her best shot. The door to her studio buzzed, and Amara, her lead seamstress, poked her head in. "Zoe, you've got a visitor." "It's Foster." Her tone was wary. She'd been burned by industry politics before, and didn't trust Ryan's sudden interest in their small operation. Zoe nodded, steeling herself. "Send him in." Ryan entered, his navy suit pristine despite the late hour. He carried a leather portfolio, his expression unreadable. "Zoe, we need to talk. I've got something." She crossed her arms, leaning against the drafting table. "If it's another cryptic email, I'm not interested. I need names." "Ryan, who's behind this?" He set the portfolio down and opened it, revealing a stack of printouts. "My team traced the email's origin. It's not Luxe Atelier directly, someone working through a proxy. But there's more." He slid a document toward her, a financial report detailing payments from Vantage Holdings, the shell company linked to the leak. "These payments went to a private investigator for digging up dirt on designers. They've been tailing you for weeks." Zoe's stomach twisted. She picked up the report, her eyes scanning the numbers. Thousands of dollars were funneled into surveillance hacking and media manipulation. This wasn't just a rival brand playing dirty, it was personal. "Why me?" she asked, her voice low. "I'm nobody compared to Luxe. Why go to all this trouble?" Ryan hesitated, his fingers tapping the table. "You're not nobody, Zoe. Your collection shook things up. You're a threat to the status quo, and someone wants to keep it that way. I have a theory, but you're not going to like it." "Spit it out," she said, her tone sharp. He met her gaze. "Isabella Reed, my former business partner. She left Foster Couture 2 years ago after a disagreement. She's been working with Luxe Atelier's parent company and has a history of targeting new designers who challenge her." Zoe's mind raced. Isabella Reed was a legend in the industry, a ruthless creative director, known for her icy demeanor and cutthroat tactics. If she was behind this, it explained the precision of the attack. But why would she care about a small-time designer like Zoe? "What's her deal with you?" Zoe asked. "Why target me to get to you?" Ryan's jaw tightened. Isabella and I built Foster Couture together, but we clashed over vision. She wanted control. I wanted innovation. When she left, she swore she'd make me pay. You're caught in the crossfire because I showed interest in you. Zoe's eyes narrowed. So, this is your fault? Not directly, Ryan said, his voice steady. But I should have seen it coming. Isabella doesn't play fair. Let me help you fight her. Zoe wanted to snap at him to tell him she didn't need his help, but the evidence was piling up and she couldn't fight a giant like Isabella alone. Fine, she said. But I'm not your pawn, Ryan. We do this my way. He nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Deal. First step, we confront her. She's hosting a gala tomorrow night at the Met. It's neutral ground, but she'll be there. We can gauge her reaction, maybe push her to slip up. Zoe agreed, though every instinct screamed caution. Confronting Isabella Reed was like poking a viper, but she had no choice. Her brand was bleeding. She wouldn't let it die without a fight. The Metropolitan Museum of Art glittered under the night sky, its grand halls filled with the fashion world's elite. Zoe wore one of her designs, a sleek black gown with gold embroidery that hugged her frame like armor. She felt out of place among the champagne flutes and diamond-encrusted clutches, but she held her head high. Ryan stood beside her, his tuxedo sharp and his presence commanding. Together they were a striking pair, but Zoe kept her distance, wary of his intentions. Isabella Reed held court near the Temple of Dender, her silver dress shimmering like liquid metal. Her sharp features and piercing gaze made her look like a queen surveying her kingdom. Zoe's heart pounded as they approached, but she kept her expression neutral. Ryan, Isabella said, her voice smooth as silk. And Ms. Parker. What a surprise. Her eyes flicked over Zoe, assessing her like a predator sizing up prey. Isabella, Ryan said, his tone cool. We need to talk. Privately. She raised an eyebrow, but led them to a quiet alcove. Zoe didn't waste time. Someone's been stealing my designs, she said, her voice steady, and framing me for plagiarism. Vantage Holdings is involved. Know anything about that? Isabella's smile was razor thin. Accusations are dangerous, Ms. Parker. You're new to this world. You should be careful who you trust. Her gaze slid to Ryan, and Zoe caught the venom in it. Ryan stepped forward. Don't play games, Isabella. We've got evidence. Payments, emails, surveillance. It all points to you. Isabella's laugh was cold. You think I'd waste my time on a nobody like her? You're desperate, Ryan. Your empire's crumbling, and you're dragging her down with you. Zoe's fists clenched. I'm not a nobody, and I'm not here to be your collateral damage. If you're behind this, I'll find out. Isabella's eyes narrowed, but a commotion erupted across the room before she could respond. A reporter from Vogue approached her phone, already recording. Ms. Parker, any comment on the latest allegations? Foster Couture's been manipulating the market and you're involved. Zoe froze. The scandal had escalated, and now Ryan's name was tangled in it. She glanced at him, searching for any sign of guilt, but his face was a mask of fury. This is nonsense, he snapped. Someone's feeding lies to the press. Isabella smirked, slipping away into the crowd. Zoe's mind raced. The timing was too perfect. Isabella had to be behind this. But the reporter's question lingered. Was Ryan as innocent as he claimed? The gala ended in a blur, with Zoe dodging questions and Ryan promising to handle the press. But the damage was done. By morning, the headlines were brutal. Foster Couture's shady deal's new designer caught in the crossfire. Zoe sat in her studio scrolling through the articles. Her brand was being torn apart, and Ryan's involvement was making it worse. She called Amara, who was already fielding panicked calls from buyers. We're losing orders, Zoe, Amara said. If we don't clear this up soon, we're done. Zoe hung up, her resolve hardening. She wasn't going to let Isabella or Ryan destroy her. She opened her laptop and started digging into Vantage Holdings, determined to find the truth. Hours later, her phone pinged with a message from an unknown number, a screenshot of an email linking Isabella to the private investigator. It wasn't enough to nail her, but it was a start. Zoe texted Ryan, "Meet me at my studio. Now. We're ending this." Ryan arrived within the hour, his usual polish replaced by a tense edge. "What did you find?" he asked, glancing at her laptop. Zoe showed him the screenshot. "This ties Isabella to the investigator, but it's not enough for the press or the courts. We need hard evidence." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "I've got a contact who can hack into Vantage's servers. It's risky, but it could give us what we need." Zoe hesitated. Hacking was a line she wasn't sure she wanted to cross, but the alternative was letting her brand die. "Do it," she said. "But if this blows back on me, Ryan, you're done." He met her gaze, his eyes steady. "I know. Let's finish this." As they waited for the hacker's results, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling she was in over her head. Isabella was a titan, and Ryan's motives were still unclear, but she'd come too far to back down. Her designs, her story, her resilience, they were worth everything, and she was going to fight for them no matter the cost. The fallout from the gala was relentless. Zoe Parker's name was splashed across every fashion blog, linked to a scandal that painted Foster Couture as a manipulative empire and her as its unwitting pawn. Her threads of resilience collection orders were drying up, and buyers were pulling out, spooked by the rumors. Zoe sat in her Brooklyn studio, surrounded by bolts of fabric and half-finished garments, her laptop open to a scathing article. Zoe Parker, talent or tool. The words stung, but she pushed them aside. She'd survived worse than gossip, clawed her way into an industry that rarely welcomed outsiders. She wasn't about to let it break her now. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan Foster. "Hackers got something. Meet me at my office at noon." Zoe's stomach churned. The hacker Ryan had hired was their last hope to tie Isabella Reed to the leak of her designs, but trusting him felt like a tightrope. Every interaction with Ryan pulled her deeper into his world, and she wasn't sure she'd come out unscathed. She arrived at Foster Couture's Soho headquarters, and her emerald green jumpsuit was a bold statement against the sterile glass and steel. Ryan was waiting in his office, his usual polish replaced by a tense energy. A woman in a sleek blazer stood beside him, Lila, the hacker he'd mentioned. "Zoe, this is Lila," Ryan said. "She's got what we need." Lila didn't waste time. "I breached Vantage Holdings servers," she said, her voice low. "It wasn't easy. They've got layers of encryption. But I found this." She pulled up a file on her tablet, a chain of emails between Isabella Reed and an unnamed contact. The messages detailed payments for surveillance on Zoe, instructions to leak her designs, and a plan to frame her for plagiarism. One email stood out. "Parker's a threat. Bury her before she gets to Paris Fashion Week." Zoe's breath caught. Paris was her next goal, a dream she'd barely dared to voice. Isabella wasn't just trying to ruin her, she was trying to erase her future. "This is enough, right?" Zoe asked, her voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "We can take this to the press, the police, or anyone." Ryan shook his head. "It's damning, but it's not airtight. The emails don't explicitly name Isabella as the sender, just her alias. We need something concrete, like a direct transaction or a witness." Zoe's fists clenched. "So what? We sit here while she destroys me?" "No," Ryan said, his tone firm. "We use this to draw her out. You've got a slot at Fashion Week's closing showcase tomorrow. If we leak that you're presenting a new piece, one she thinks she can steal, it might force her hand." Zoe hesitated. The closing showcase was her last chance to salvage her reputation, but using it as bait was risky. If Isabella took the bait and sabotaged her again, it could be the end of her brand. But if she did nothing, she'd lose everything anyway. "Fine," she said. "But I'm designing the piece. No one else touches it." Ryan nodded, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "I wouldn't expect anything less. Let's get to work." The next 24 hours were a blur. Zoe locked herself in her studio sketching a new gown that would be the centerpiece of her showcase. It was a daring design, flowing silk with intricate beadwork that told a story of defiance, each stitch a rebellion against the forces trying to silence her. Amara and her team worked alongside her, their needles flying as they brought the vision to life. Zoe barely slept, her focus absolute. This gown wasn't just a garment, it was her fight heart and legacy. Ryan was a constant presence, coordinating with Lila to set the trap. They planted a rumor through a trusted fashion blog, hinting that Zoe's new piece was a game changer that would redefine her brand. The bait was set. If Isabella were watching, she'd try to steal it. Lila monitored Vantage Holdings' servers, waiting for any sign of intrusion. As the showcase approached, tension hung over Zoe's studio like a storm cloud. She and Ryan worked late into the night, reviewing security protocols and double-checking the gown's storage. At one point, their hands brushed as they reached for the same sketch, and Zoe pulled back, startled by the warmth of his touch. Ryan didn't comment, but his gaze lingered, a question in his eyes. Zoe said, "You don't have to do this," breaking the silence. "This isn't your fight." Ryan leaned against the drafting table, his expression serious. "It is now. I've seen what happens when people like Isabella win. I've lost designers to her game's good ones. I'm not letting her take you too." Zoe studied him, searching for a lie, but found none. For the first time, she saw past the billionaire facade to the man beneath, a man who'd fought his battles in this cutthroat world. "Why do you care?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You remind me why I got into this industry. It's not just about money. It's about creating something tangible. You do that, Zoe, and I'm not going to let anyone stop you." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from Lila. "Intrusion detected. Someone's accessing your studio's cloud drive. It's her." Zoe's heart raced. The trap had worked. Isabella was making her move. But as they rushed to check the security footage, disaster struck. An alarm blared through the studio, and Amara burst in, her face pale. "Zoe, the gown. It's gone." Zoe's world tilted. She ran to the storage room, where the gown's mannequin stood empty, the lock on the door shattered. Her masterpiece, her last hope, was gone. She turned to Ryan, her voice trembling with fury. "Did you know about this? Was this part of your plan?" Ryan's face was ashen. "No. Zoe, I swear I had no idea. We need to find that gown now." Lila was already on her laptop, pulling up the studio's security feed. "The cameras were looped for 10 minutes, she said. "Same MO as the last breach. But I've got a partial trace on the thief's exit route. They're headed toward the East River." Zoe didn't wait. She grabbed her keys and ran for the door, Ryan and Lila close behind. They piled into Ryan's car, speeding through Brooklyn streets as Lila tracked the thief's signal. The trail led to an abandoned warehouse by the waterfront, its rusted doors ajar. Zoe's pulse pounded as they crept inside, the air thick with dust and the faint scent of gasoline. Zoe spotted the gown in the dim light, draped over a crate like a trophy. A figure stood nearby, cloaked in shadow. "Show yourself!" Zoe called, her voice echoing. The figure stepped forward, revealing a man in a black hoodie. "You're too late, Parker," he said. "This gown's already sold. Luxe Atelier has big plans for it." Zoe's fists clenched. "You're working for Isabella. Tell me where she is." The man smirked. But before he could respond, Ryan lunged, tackling him to the ground. The scuffle was brief. Ryan pinned him, and Lila zip-tied his wrists. Zoe grabbed the gown, her hands trembling as she checked for damage. It was intact, but the violation stung. This was her work, her soul, and Isabella had tried to rip it away. They called the police, who took the thief into custody. Back at the studio, Zoe clutched the gown, her resolve hardening. The showcase lasted 12 hours, and she wouldn't let Isabella win. Ryan stayed by her side, his presence steady but not overbearing. "You're incredible," he said quietly. "Most people would have folded by now." Zoe didn't look at him. "I don't fold," she said. "But I need to know you're not playing me, Ryan. No more surprises." He nodded. "No more surprises. We'll get through this together." As dawn broke, Zoe prepared for the showcase, her gown ready and her heart steeled. Isabella was still out there, but Zoe was prepared to fight. Her brand story, resilience, they were hers to defend. And no one, not even a titan like Isabella Reed, would take them away. The air in Zoe Parker's Brooklyn studio was heavy with the scent of fabric and the faint hum of a sewing machine winding down. The chaos of the stolen gown had shaken her, but Zoe clutched the recovered piece like a lifeline, its silk and beadwork a testament to her defiance. The Fashion Week closing showcase was hours away, and her Threads of Resilience collection hung in the balance. Isabella Reed's shadow loomed large, her orchestrated attacks threatening to unravel everything Zoe had built. Yet amid the storm, Ryan Foster remained a constant presence. His resources had helped recover the gown, but his motives were still a puzzle Zoe couldn't fully solve. She stood at her drafting table, meticulously adjusting the gown's hem. Her team had dispersed for a brief rest, leaving her alone with Ryan, who was reviewing security footage on his laptop. The studio's exposed brick walls and scattered sketches felt like a sanctuary, but the weight of the scandal pressed against her chest. The press was still buzzing with accusations, tying her to Foster Couture's alleged market manipulation, and every hour brought new doubts about Ryan's role in the mess. He looked up from his screen, his tie loosened, and sleeves rolled up, a rare glimpse of vulnerability in his polished demeanor. "Zoe, we've got the thief's confession on record. He admitted to working for Vantage Holdings, but is at a low level. He doesn't know who's calling the shots." Zoe's needle paused mid-stitch. "It's Isabella. We both know it. That email you showed me is her style, which is calculated and vicious." She set the gown aside, her eyes meeting his. "But I need to know, Ryan, are you clean in this? Because every time I turn around, there's another headline tying me to your mess." Ryan closed his laptop, his expression serious. "I'm not behind the leaks or the scandal. I've made enemies. Zoe, Isabella, chief among them, but I'm not playing you. I want you to succeed. Your work, it's real. It's what this industry needs." His words hung between them, and for a moment, Zoe saw past the billionaire facade to the man who'd stayed up all night helping her secure the studio. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a risk she wasn't sure she could take. "Prove it," she said, her voice steady. "Please help me get through this showcase without another disaster." He nodded. "We will. Lila is monitoring Vantage's servers for any new activity, and I've doubled security for the event. No one's getting near your collection again." Zoe exhaled, turning back to the gown. "Then let's finish this. I need this piece perfect by morning." The night stretched on the studio, lit by soft lamplight, as Zoe and Ryan worked side by side. She focused on the gown, her hands moving precisely, while Ryan coordinated with his team via phone, ensuring every showcase detail was locked down. The quiet rhythm of their work created an unexpected intimacy, the kind born from shared purpose under pressure. At one point, Ryan set his phone down and leaned against the drafting table, watching her sew. Have you ever thought about where this all started? He asked, his voice low. The designing, the drive. What got you here? Zoe paused, her needle hovering. She rarely shared her past. It was too raw, too tied to the struggles she'd fought to overcome. But something in Ryan's genuine and unguarded tone made her answer. My grandmother, she said. She was a seamstress who taught me to thread a needle before I could read. She'd tell stories about her life, about making something beautiful out of scraps. That's what I'm doing here, taking what I've got and making it mean something. Ryan smiled faintly. My start was different. I didn't have a mentor, just a lot of ambition and a few lucky breaks. I studied design in college, but the business side pulled me in. I wanted to build something that lasted and gave people like you a platform. Zoe raised an eyebrow. People like me. People with fire, he said, unfazed. People who don't just follow trends, they set them. She didn't respond, but his words struck a chord. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man behind the empire, someone who'd fought his battles to get here. They worked in silence for a while, the only sounds the snip of scissors and the rustle of fabric. When Zoe reached for a spool of thread, their hands brushed, and she froze, the warmth of his touch lingering. Ryan didn't pull away, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet intensity. We're going to get through this, he said softly. You and me. Zoe pulled her hand back, her heart racing. She said, let's focus on the showcase, her voice firmer than she felt. As dawn broke, the studio was a hive of activity. Amar and the team returned, prepping the gown and the rest of the collection for transport to the Javits Center. Zoe's nerves were frayed, but her resolve was ironclad. This showcase was her chance to reclaim her narrative and show the world what Threads of Resilience was made of. Ryan's security team escorted the collection to the venue, and Zoe threw herself into final preparations, checking lighting, coordinating models, and briefing the stage crew. Ryan was a constant presence, handling logistics with a calm efficiency that surprised her. When a model's heel broke minutes before the show, he produced a replacement pair from a nearby boutique without missing a beat. Zoe caught his eye across the chaotic backstage, a silent thank you passing between them. The lights dimmed, and the showcase began. Zoe's collection lit up the runway. Vibrant silks, bold patterns, each piece a story of strength. The audience leaned forward, captivated as the new gown took center stage, its beadwork shimmering like a constellation. Zoe stood backstage, her heart pounding, watching her vision come to life. The applause was thunderous, a wave of validation that nearly brought her to tears. But the triumph was short-lived. As the final model exited, Zoe's phone buzzed with an urgent message from Lila Studio Breach. Someone's inside right now. Zoe's blood ran cold. She grabbed Ryan, her voice low. We need to go. Someone's in my studio. They raced to Brooklyn, where Ryan's driver was weaving through traffic. When they arrived, the studio door was ajar, the lock shattered. Inside, chaos reigned. Fabric bolts were slashed, sketches torn, and sewing machines overturned. Zoe's heart sank as she surveyed the damage her sanctuary again violated. Who did this? She whispered, her voice trembling with rage. Ryan's jaw tightened as he scanned the room. This is Isabella's work. She's escalating. Zoe turned to him, her eyes blazing. How do you know? You keep saying it's her. But where's the proof? I can't keep fighting shadows, Ryan. He met her gaze, his voice steady. I know her. This is personal for both of us, but I promise we'll find the evidence to bury her. As they began cleaning up, Lila called with an update. I've got something, she said. A new email from Vantage's servers. It mentions a meeting tonight at Isabella's penthouse. If you want proof, this is your shot. Zoe looked at Ryan, her resolve hardening. We're going, she said. No more games. We end this tonight. The drive to Isabella's penthouse was tense, the city lights blurring past, as Zoe steeled herself for what lay ahead. Ryan was quiet, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Zoe sensed his stake in this fight, for the first time a past with Isabella that went beyond business. She didn't ask, but its weight hung between them. As they parked outside the sleek Upper East Side building, Zoe's phone buzzed with a final message from Lila. Be careful. She's not alone. Zoe's heart pounded, but she wasn't backing down. Her brand, her dreams, her resilience, they were worth everything. And tonight, she'd face the Viper head-on. The Upper East Side penthouse of Isabella Reed was a fortress of glass and marble, its sleek lines and modern art screaming wealth and power. Zoe Parker stood in the elevator beside Ryan Foster, her heart pounding as they ascended to the top floor. The destruction of her studio still burned in her mind, torn fabric, shattered machines, her sanctuary reduced to rubble. Lila's intel led them to a meeting where Isabella was allegedly finalizing her plans to bury Zoe's brand. The email had been cryptic but precise. Isabella was meeting someone tonight, and it was tied to Vantage Holdings. Zoe clutched her phone, the screenshot of the email, her only weapon. This was her chance to unmask the woman behind the attacks. Ryan glanced at her, his expression tense. You sure about this, Zoe? Isabella doesn't play nice when she's cornered. Zoe's jaw tightened. Neither do I. She went after my work, my livelihood. I'm not leaving until I have answers. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open to a sprawling penthouse bathed in soft lighting. Isabella stood near a floor-to-ceiling window, her silver dress catching the city's glow. She turned as they entered, her smile sharp and unyielding. Ryan, she said, her voice smooth as glass. And Ms. Parker? To what do I owe this intrusion? Zoe didn't hesitate. Cut the act, Isabella. We know you're behind the leaks, the smear campaign, the studio break-in, Vantage Holdings, the emails, it all points to you. Isabella's laugh was cold, her eyes flicking to Ryan. You've trained her well, haven't you? Always pointing fingers at me when your empire starts to crack. Ryan stepped forward, his voice low. This isn't about me. You targeted Zoe to get to me. Why? What's the endgame? Isabella's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, gesturing to a leather sofa. Sit. Let's talk like civilized people. Zoe remained standing, her arms crossed. Isabella sighed, swirling a glass of wine. You're wasting your time, Ms. Parker. You're out of your depth. This industry chews up dreamers like you. Zoe's blood boiled, but she kept her voice steady. Then why go to all this trouble? If I'm such a nobody, why steal my designs? Why trash my studio? Isabella's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Zoe saw a crack in her facade. You're a distraction, she said. Ryan's obsession with you is inconvenient. He's losing focus, and I'm simply reminding him where his priorities lie. Ryan's fists clenched. You left Foster Couture, Isabella. You don't get to dictate my priorities anymore. Tell us the truth or we'll take what we have to the press. Isabella's gaze hardened. You have nothing. A few emails. A thief who'll say anything for a plea deal. You're bluffing. Zoe pulled out her phone, displaying the screenshot Lila had sent. This says otherwise, payments to a private investigator and instructions to sabotage my showcase. Your alias is all over it. Keep denying it, and I'll make sure every blog in the city sees this. Isabella's composure slipped, her knuckles whitening around her glass. You're making a mistake, Ms. Parker. You don't know who you're dealing with. Before Zoe could respond, a man emerged from a side room, a tall figure in a tailored suit, his presence commanding. Enough, Isabella, he said, his voice calm but firm. Zoe recognized him instantly, Marcus Vale, CEO of Luxe Atelier's parent company. They've got enough to cause trouble. Let's end this. Zoe's heart raced. This was bigger than she'd imagined. Isabella wasn't acting alone. Marcus turned to her, his expression unreadable. Ms. Parker, you're talented, but you're in the way. Step back and we'll make it worthwhile. A payout. A quiet exit. You can start over somewhere else. Zoe's fists clenched. You think I'd sell out? My brand is mine. You don't get to take it. Ryan stepped closer, his voice sharp. She's not going anywhere, Marcus. And neither am I. You and Isabella crossed a line. Isabella's laugh was bitter. You're pathetic, Ryan. Can you save her? You're the reason she's in this mess. Tell her the truth about what you did to me. Zoe's eyes flicked to Ryan, a knot forming in her stomach. What's she talking about? Ryan's jaw tightened, and for the first time, he looked uneasy. Isabella and I. We had a falling out. When she left Foster Couture, I made decisions that hurt her career. I didn't sabotage her, but didn't stop the industry from turning on her either. She's been holding a grudge ever since. Isabella's eyes blazed. You destroyed me, Ryan. You let the board push me out. Let the press paint me as unstable. I built that company with you, and you threw me away. Now you're propping up her. She gestured at Zoe, her voice dripping with venom. She's nothing but a shiny new toy for you to parade around. Zoe's heart pounded, but she refused to back down. This isn't about you and Ryan. This is about my work. You stole my designs, trashed my studio, and tried to ruin me. Why? Isabella's smile was cold. Because you're collateral damage. Ryan's weakness is his obsession with new talent. I wanted him to feel what I felt, powerless. Zoe took a step forward, her voice steady. You failed. My collection went out tonight and the world saw it. You can't take that away. Isabella's composure cracked, and she lunged forward, her wine glass shattering on the floor. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Enough, he said. This ends now, Ms. Parker. Walk away, or we'll make sure you regret it. Ryan moved between them, his voice low and dangerous. Threaten her again, Marcus, and I'll bury you both. I've got enough on Vantage to sink your entire operation. Marcus's eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. Isabella wrenched her arm free, glaring at Zoe. This isn't over, she hissed, then stormed out, leaving Marcus to face them alone. He sighed, adjusting his cufflinks. You've made your point. But this industry doesn't forgive, Ms. Parker. Watch your back. As he left, Zoe turned to Ryan, her mind reeling. You knew she was like this, and you didn't warn me. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his expression pained. I didn't think she'd go this far. I could protect you. Zoe shook her head, her voice sharp. I don't need protecting. I need the truth. No more secrets, Ryan. He nodded, his eyes meeting hers. No more secrets. But we're not done. Isabella's desperate now. She'll strike again. We need to be ready. Back at the studio, Zoe and Ryan worked to salvage what they could. The damage was extensive, but Amara and the team rallied, repairing what they could for future shows. As they sorted through the wreckage, Zoe's phone buzzed with a new headline. Foster Couture CEO accused of financial fraud. Parker's brand implicated. The article claimed Ryan had funneled money through Vantage Holdings to manipulate stock prices, dragging Zoe's name into the mud. Zoe's heart sank. Did you know about this? She demanded, shoving her phone at Ryan. He scanned the article, his face darkening. This is Isabella's doing. She's planting lies to discredit us both. I'll handle it. My lawyers are already on it. Zoe's trust wavered, but she had no choice but to keep moving forward. The showcase had bought her time, but the war wasn't over. Isabella's mask had fallen, revealing the depth of her vendetta. But Zoe knew the fight was far from finished. Her brand story resilience, they were hers to defend. And Zoe was ready to fight back, no matter what Isabella threw at her next. The Brooklyn studio was a shell of its former self, its once vibrant chaos, reduced to a battlefield of torn fabric and broken equipment. Zoe Parker stood amidst the wreckage, her threads of resilience collection hanging in tatters, literally and figuratively. The Fashion Week closing showcase had been a triumph, but the victory was short-lived. Isabella Reed's latest blow, a fabricated article accusing Ryan Foster of financial fraud and implicating Zoe, had sent shockwaves through the industry. The headline burned in her mind. Foster Couture CEO accused of financial fraud. Parker's brand implicated. Her phone buzzed incessantly, with notifications each a dagger to her reputation. Zoe's hands trembled as she scrolled through the article. It claimed Ryan had funneled money through Vantage Holdings to manipulate stock prices with Zoe's brand as a front for his schemes. The accusations were baseless, but the damage was real. Buyers were pulling orders, sponsors were backing out, and the fashion blogs were feasting on the scandal. She glanced at Ryan on the phone with his legal team, his voice tight with frustration. His presence in her studio, once a source of reluctant comfort, now felt like a liability. She set her phone down, her voice sharp. Ryan, tell me you didn't know about this. Tell me this isn't another one of your messes I'm caught in. He hung up the call, his expression weary but resolute. Zoe, I swear this is Isabella's doing. She's planting lies to hit us both. My lawyers are already tracing the article's source. It's a smear job, nothing more. Zoe's eyes narrowed. Nothing more. My brand is bleeding out because of this. I trusted you to help me, and now I'm tied to your name in every headline. Please give me one reason to believe you're not part of this. Ryan stepped closer, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. Because I'm fighting for you, Zoe. I've got no stake in Vantage Holdings, and there are no shady deals. Isabella's trying to divide us because she knows we're stronger together. Let me prove it. My team's digging into her financials. Zoe wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Isabella's revelation at the penthouse about Ryan's role in her downfall had planted a seed of mistrust. Had he manipulated others the way Isabella claimed? Was Zoe just another pawn in his game? She turned away, focusing on a torn sketch of her centerpiece gown, its intricate beadwork now a painful reminder of her stolen dreams. I need more than promises, Ryan, she said. I need evidence. He nodded, his jaw tight. You'll have it. But we need to move fast. The press is circling, and Isabella's not done. There's a press conference tomorrow, major outlets and industry insiders. If we don't counter this narrative, it'll bury us both. Zoe's stomach churned. A press conference was a gamble facing the media, meant exposing herself to their scrutiny. But staying silent would let Isabella's lies fester. Fine, she said. But I'm speaking for myself. This is my brand, my story. You don't get to control it. Ryan's eyes softened, a flicker of respect in them. I wouldn't want it any other way. The next day, the press conference loomed like a storm. Zoe stood backstage at the Javits Center, her tailored blazer and skirt a defiant statement of her identity. The room buzzed with reporters, their cameras flashing like vultures circling a carcass. Ryan was beside her, his suit impeccable, but the weight of the accusations tempered his usual confidence. Zoe's team, Amara, her lead seamstress, and a handful of loyal assistants stood nearby, their faces tense but supportive. As Zoe stepped to the podium, the room fell silent. She gripped the edge, her voice steady, despite the knot in her chest. My name is Zoe Parker, and I'm the designer behind Threads of Resilience. My work has been attacked, my reputation smeared, and my studio destroyed. But I'm here to set the record straight. My designs are my own, and I've done nothing but pour my heart into this industry. The accusations against me and against Foster Couture are lies orchestrated by someone who wants to silence new voices. The reporters erupted with questions, their voices overlapping. Ms. Parker, what's your connection to Foster Couture's alleged fraud? Is Ryan Foster using your brand as a front? Why should we believe you? Zoe's heart pounded, but she held her ground. I'm an independent designer. My partnership with Ryan Foster is professional, nothing more. As for the accusations, ask yourself who benefits from tearing us down. Someone's been stealing my designs, leaking them to rivals, and planting stories to discredit us. I'm not the one hiding. Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. Foster Couture has operated transparently for years. These allegations are baseless, and we're pursuing legal action against the sources. My support for Zoe Parker is about her talent, not some conspiracy. We'll prove it with evidence, not words. The questions grew sharper, and Zoe felt the weight of every stare. Then a reporter from WWD stood, her voice cutting through the noise. Ms. Parker, sources claim you've been receiving threats. Care to comment? Zoe froze. She hadn't told anyone about the anonymous text she'd received that morning. Stay away from Ryan if you want to stay safe. It came from an untraceable burner number. Timing was too perfect. She glanced at Ryan, who looked as surprised as she felt. I've received messages, she said carefully, but I'm not backing down. My work speaks for itself, and I'm here to fight for it. The conference ended in a flurry of flashes and shouted questions, but Zoe felt a flicker of hope. She'd faced the beast and survived, but as she and Ryan left the stage, her phone buzzed with another text. You were warned. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just Isabella's vendetta, it threatened her life. Back at the studio, Zoe showed Ryan the messages. His face darkened, his voice low. This is her. She's desperate now, and desperate people make mistakes. We'll find her. Zoe's trust wavered, but she had no choice. I'm not running, she said. But I need to know you're not hiding anything. If there's more to your history with Isabella, please tell me now. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. There's nothing more. She was my partner, my friend, until she wasn't. I made mistakes, but I'm not the villain here. Let me help you end this. Zoe studied him, searching for a lie, but found only resolve. Okay, she said. But if I find out you're playing me, Ryan, I'm done. He met her gaze. Fair enough. Let's finish this. The next few days were a blur of investigation and damage control. Ryan's team traced the burner number to a prepaid account, but it was a dead end. The hacker Lila uncovered more emails linking Isabella to Vantage Holdings, but they were still circumstantial. Zoe threw herself into repairing her studio, salvaging what she could for future shows. Amara and the team worked tirelessly, and their loyalty was a lifeline in the chaos. But the threats didn't stop. Another message arrived with a photo of Zoe leaving the press conference. Her face circled in red, last chance. Zoe's heart raced, but she refused to let fear win. She forwarded the message to Lila, who promised to trace it. Ryan doubled security around the studio, but Zoe felt like a target in a game she didn't fully understand. As the pressure mounted, Zoe's doubts about Ryan grew. His history with Isabella, his empire's shadow, and the ease with which he navigated this world made her question his motives. Was he truly her ally, or was he using her to settle an old score? The answer lay. Finding Isabella and Zoe wasn't waiting for another attack. She needed to take the fight to her. The threats were closing in, each one a noose tightening around Zoe Parker's neck. The anonymous messages, Stay away from Ryan if you want to stay safe. Last chance escalated from warnings to outright menace. The photo of her at the press conference was a chilling reminder that someone was watching. Once a haven, her Brooklyn studio felt like a trap, its patched-up walls and salvaged equipment a testament to Isabella Reed's wrath. Zoe's Threads of Resilience collection was hanging by a thread, and her alliance with Ryan Foster was fraying under the weight of doubt. She needed answers, and she wasn't waiting for another blow. Zoe sat at her drafting table, her laptop open to Lila's latest report. The hacker had traced the threatening texts to a server linked to Vantage Holdings, but the trail stopped short of naming Isabella directly. Ryan stood nearby, coordinating with his security team, his voice low but urgent. "We've got eyes on Isabella's penthouse," he said, hanging up the phone. "She's hosting a private event tonight. Industry insiders, potential buyers. If she's planning her next move, it's happening there." Zoe's eyes narrowed. "Then we're going. I'm done playing defense." Ryan hesitated, his expression torn. "Zoe, it's not safe. Those texts, they're not just threats. She's capable of worse." Zoe stood, her tailored jacket a shield against the fear gnawing at her. "I'm not hiding, Ryan. She's after my brand, my life. I'm facing her tonight with or without you." He studied her, then nodded. "All right. But we do this smart. Lila's got a back door into the penthouse's security system. We'll know who's there before we walk in." The event was at Isabella's Upper East Side penthouse, the same glass and marble fortress where Zoe had confronted her. This time, the space was alive with the clink of champagne glasses and the murmur of elite guests, designers, investors, and media moguls. Zoe wore a sleek crimson gown from her collection, its bold lines a declaration of her presence. In a tailored tuxedo, Ryan stayed close, his eyes scanning the crowd for threats. Isabella greeted them at the entrance, her silver dress shimmering like armor. Her smile was a blade sharp and calculated. "Ms. Parker Ryan, how bold of you to show up uninvited." Zoe didn't flinch. "I'm here for answers, Isabella. You've been stealing my designs, trashing my studio, and sending threats. I've got evidence, emails, payments, and your alias are all over Vantage Holdings. Stop now, or I'll take it public." Isabella's laugh was cold, her eyes flicking to Ryan. "You're still leaning on him, aren't you? He's the reason you're in this mess. Tell her, Ryan. Tell her how you let me burn." Ryan's jaw tightened, but Zoe spoke first. "This isn't about him. It's about you. You hired the investigator, leaked my designs, and sent those texts. Admit it, or I'll make sure the world knows." The crowd around them quieted, sensing the tension. Isabella's composure wavered, but she recovered, gesturing to a private room. "Let's talk away from prying eyes." They followed her to a sleek office, its walls lined with framed magazine covers. Isabella shut the door, her voice low. "You're out of your league, Ms. Parker. This industry doesn't reward dreamers. It rewards power. Walk away, and I'll make sure you're compensated." Zoe's fists clenched. "Can you buy me? My brand is my soul. You don't get to take it." Isabella's eyes darkened. "Then you'll lose everything. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Before Zoe could respond, Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling. "Lila's got something, a live feed from Vantage's servers. It's a video of the studio break-in." He turned his phone, showing grainy footage of a masked figure slashing fabric, with Isabella's voice in the background giving orders. Zoe's heart raced. This was the proof she needed. "It's over, Isabella. This goes to the press tonight." Isabella lunged for the phone, but Ryan pulled it back. The door burst open, and Marcus Vale, Luxe Atelier's CEO, stormed in, his presence commanding. "Enough," he said, his voice cold. "Isabella, you've gone too far. This ends now." Isabella's face contorted with rage. You're siding with them after everything I've done for you. Marcus's eyes were steely. You're a liability. Step back or I'll cut you loose. Zoe seized the moment, her voice steady. I'm taking this video to the police, the press. Everyone. You're done, Isabella. Isabella's scream was cut short as Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. But as they left, she turned her eyes burning into Zoe's. This isn't over, she hissed. Zoe's adrenaline surged, but Ryan's hand on her shoulder grounded her. You did it, he said, his voice low. You faced her down. She pulled away, her heart still racing. We're not done. That video needs to go public, and I must ensure my brand survives this. Back at the studio, Zoe and Ryan worked with Lila to prepare the evidence. The video was damning. Isabella's voice was clear as she orchestrated the break-in. Zoe sent it to trusted journalists, and the emails and financial records tied her to Vantage Holdings. By morning, the headlines shifted. Isabella Reed exposed designer's plot to sabotage rival uncovered. The fashion world erupted, and Zoe's name began to clear. But the victory felt hollow. The threats, the scandal, Ryan's murky past, it all weighed on her. She turned to him, her voice firm. I need to know I can trust you, Ryan. No more surprises. He met her gaze, his expression open. You have my word, Zoe. I'm with you for your brand, for you. Zoe nodded, but doubt lingered. Isabella was down, but not out, and the industry was still watching. Her brand was her lifeline, and she'd fight for it with or without Ryan. The choice was hers, and she'd made it. She was all in, no matter the cost. The fallout from Isabella Reed's exposure was seismic, shaking the foundations of New York's fashion world. Though scarred from the break-in, Zoe Parker's studio buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. The damning video of Isabella orchestrating the sabotage, combined with emails and financial records linking her to Vantage Holdings, had shifted the narrative. Headlines now praised Zoe's resilience, calling her Threads of Resilience Collection a triumph over adversity. Buyers were returning, and her inbox overflowed with apologies and new orders. But Zoe felt no triumph, only a gnawing unease. Isabella's venomous parting words, "This isn't over," echoed in her mind, and Ryan Foster's role in the saga remained a question mark. Zoe stood at her drafting table, sketching a new design to channel her restless energy. The studio's patched-up walls and salvaged equipment were a testament to her survival, but the threats and scandals had left her wary. Ryan sat nearby, his laptop open, as he coordinated with his legal team to ensure Isabella faced consequences. His presence was a constant, but Zoe's trust in him was fragile, frayed by Isabella's accusations and the murky history he'd hinted at during their confrontation. She set her pencil down, her voice sharp. "Ryan, we need to talk. Isabella said you destroyed her. I need the whole story, not pieces, not excuses. I can't keep working in the dark if we do this together." Ryan closed his laptop, his expression heavy. He leaned back, his hands clasped. "You're right. You deserve the truth." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When Isabella and I started Foster Couture, we were equals, same vision, same drive. But she wanted control, wanted to play it safe with trends. I pushed for innovation and for taking risks with new talent. The board sided with me, and when we hit a rough patch financially, I made a call to restructure. It meant cutting her influence, sidelining her projects. She saw it as betrayal, and maybe it was. I didn't sabotage her, but didn't fight for her either. She left, and the industry turned on her. I let it happen." Zoe's chest tightened. "So you threw her under the bus to save your empire?" Ryan's eyes met hers, unflinching. "I chose to protect the company. It was a mistake, not because of what she's done now, but because I lost sight of what mattered. I hurt someone I cared about, and now she's hurting you to get to me." Zoe stood pacing the studio. "And you didn't tell me this before. I'm out here fighting for my life, and you're carrying this baggage. What else are you hiding?" "Nothing," Ryan said, his voice firm. "I've laid it all out. I'm not perfect, Zoe. I've made enemies, made mistakes. But I'm here now, fighting for you. Let me make this right." Zoe's hands clenched. His confession explained Isabella's vendetta, but also painted him as a man who'd sacrifice others to win. Could she trust him not to do the same to her? "I need time," she said, her voice low. "This changes things." Ryan nodded, his expression pained but accepting. "Take all the time you need." "But we're not out of the woods. Isabella's still out there, and she's not done." Zoe turned away, her mind racing. She wanted to believe Ryan, but the stakes were too high. Her brand was finally gaining traction, but one wrong move could undo everything. She needed space to think, to protect what she'd built. "I'm going for a walk," she said, grabbing her jacket. "Please don't follow me." The Brooklyn streets were alive with autumn's chill, the city's pulse a steady rhythm against Zoe's turmoil. She wandered, her thoughts tangled with Ryan's confession and Isabella's threats. Her phone buzzed with an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line, "Stark Opportunity in Milan." She opened it, her breath catching. It was an invitation from a prestigious Italian fashion house, offering her a residency to develop her next collection in Milan. The timing was perfect, a chance to escape New York's chaos, to rebuild her brand on her terms. But it meant leaving everything behind, including Ryan. She returned to the studio, the email burning in her mind. Amara was there, sorting through repaired fabric bolts. "You okay?" Amara asked, her eyes sharp with concern. Zoe showed her the email. "Milan. They want me to start next month. It's everything I've dreamed of, but it means leaving this mess," Amara finished. "And Ryan." Zoe nodded, her voice tight. "He told me about Isabella and how he pushed her out. I don't know if I can trust him not to do the same to me." Amara set a bolt down, her expression serious. "You fought too hard to let anyone control you, Zoe. Milan could be a fresh start. But you need to decide what you're running from and what you're running toward." Zoe spent the night wrestling with her choice. Milan was a dream, but abandoning her fight felt like letting Isabella win. And Ryan, despite her doubts, stood by her, risking his reputation to protect hers. Was she ready to walk away from that? The next morning she found Ryan at the studio, his face drawn from a sleepless night. "Zoe, I was about to call you. Lila saw new financial records tying Isabella to a shell company in the Caymans. It's enough to take it to the authorities." Zoe's heart raced, but she held up a hand. "Before we do anything, I need to tell you something. I got an offer, a residency in Milan. I'm thinking about taking it." Ryan's expression faltered, a flicker of hurt in his eyes. "Milan's a big move. Is this about Isabella or me?" Zoe met his gaze, her voice steady. "It's about me, my brand, my future. I need to know I'm building something that's mine, not tied to your wars or Isabella's games." He nodded slowly. "I get it. But you don't have to run to prove that. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met, Zoe. If you stay, we can end this together. If you go, I'll make sure Isabella doesn't follow you." Zoe's chest ached. His words were earnest, but the weight of his past mistakes lingered. "I haven't decided," she said. "But I'm not letting Isabella dictate my life. Let's take her down first." They spent the day preparing to present the new evidence to the authorities. Lila's records showed millions funneled through the Cayman Shell Company, directly linked to Isabella's personal accounts. It was the smoking gun they needed. But as they finalized their plan, Zoe's phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "Milan won't save you. You can't outrun me. The threat was chilling, but it only steeled her resolve. Isabella was desperate, and Zoe was ready to end this. The meeting with the authorities was set for the next day, but Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that Isabella was one step ahead. She and Ryan worked late, combing through every detail to ensure their case was airtight. Zoe's doubts about Ryan lingered as the city slept, but so did her gratitude. He'd put everything on the line for her, which meant something, even if she wasn't sure what. Milan loomed like a beacon, but New York was her battleground, and she wasn't ready to surrender it yet. The air in Zoe Parker's studio was tense, the weight of Isabella Reed's latest threat. Milan won't save you hanging like a storm cloud. Thanks to the evidence exposing Isabella's sabotage, Zoe's Threads of Resilience collection was clawing its way back from the brink. The financial records from the Cayman Shell Company, uncovered by Lila, were now in the hands of the authorities, and the fashion world was buzzing with the scandal. But Zoe's heart was heavy. The offer from Milan, a residency with a prestigious fashion house, beckoned like a lifeline, promising a fresh start away from New York's chaos. Yet leaving meant abandoning the fight she'd poured her soul into, and leaving Ryan Foster, whose loyalty was both her anchor and her uncertainty. Zoe stood at her drafting table, her fingers tracing the outline of a new sketch. Though patched together, the studio was alive again, with Amara and the team working to fulfill new orders. Ryan sat across the room, his phone buzzing with updates from his legal team. The authorities were building a case against Isabella, but her influence ran deep, and Zoe knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. The anonymous threats had intensified each reminder that Isabella was still out there watching. Ryan looked up, his expression weary but determined. The DA's confident they can charge Isabella with fraud and conspiracy. The evidence is solid, but we must stay vigilant. She's got connections, and she's not done. Zoe nodded, her voice low. She's already trying to scare me out of Milan. That last message, she knows about the offer. Ryan's jaw tightened. She's trying to control you, Zoe. Don't let her. Whether you stay or go, it's your choice, not hers. Zoe's eyes met his, searching for any hint of deception. His confession about Isabella, how he'd sidelined her to save Foster Couture, still lingered a crack in her trust. But he'd risked everything to protect her brand, and that wasn't nothing. I haven't decided about Milan, she said. But I'm not running because of her. I'm fighting for my brand no matter where I am. Ryan stood, crossing the room to stand beside her. I know, and I'm with you whatever you choose. But there's something else you need to know. He hesitated, his voice softening. I'm stepping back from a deal, a billion-dollar merger with a European conglomerate. It would have expanded Foster Couture, but it's tied to people who could hurt you. I'm not letting that happen. Zoe's breath caught. You're giving up $1 billion. Why? He met her gaze, his eyes steady. Because you're worth more than that. Your talent. Your fire. It's what this industry needs. I've seen what happens when I prioritize profit over people. I'm not making that mistake again. Zoe's heart raced, a mix of gratitude and confusion swirling inside her. Ryan's sacrifice was monumental, but it also deepened her doubts. Was this genuine or another move in his game? She turned back to her sketch, her voice quiet. I need to think about this, Ryan, about all of it. He nodded, stepping back. Take your time. But we've got work to do. Isabella's not done, and we must be ready. The next morning, Zoe woke to a new headline. Zoe Parker accused of corruption in Foster Couture scandal. The article, planted by an anonymous source, claimed Zoe had taken bribes to funnel money through her brand for Ryan's alleged fraud. It was a lie, but the timing was devastating. Her Milan offer was now public, and the article painted her as a sellout fleeing to Europe to escape scrutiny. Zoe's hands shook as she read the article, her studio suddenly feeling like a cage. Amara burst in her face, pale. Zoe, this isn't good. Buyers are pulling out again, and the Milan house just called they're reconsidering the residency. Zoe's heart sank. This is Isabella. She's hitting me where it hurts most. Ryan arrived minutes later, his face grim. I saw the article. It's her last play. She's desperate. My team is tracing the source, but we need to act quickly. If we don't shut this down, it'll ruin you. Zoe's resolve hardened. Then we fight back. I'm not letting her take Milan from me or anything else. They spent the day strategizing with Lila, digging into the article's origins. By evening, she had a lead. The anonymous source was a freelance journalist, paid through a Vantage Holdings account. It wasn't enough to nail Isabella directly, but it was another puzzle piece. Zoe and Ryan drafted a statement, refuting the claims backed by the evidence they'd already given the authorities. They sent it to every major outlet, hoping to shift the narrative. As they worked late into the night, Zoe's phone buzzed with another message from the Milan house. We're monitoring the situation. Provide proof of your innocence, and the offer stands. It was a lifeline, but a fragile one. Zoe looked at Ryan, her voice steady. I'm not losing this. We need to end Isabella now. Ryan nodded, his eyes intense. We will. But something else. I've been digging into my records since Isabella and I were partners. She signed a contract giving her a stake in Foster Couture's profits. If she's convicted, I can void it. It's what she's fighting for, her last piece of power. Zoe's mind raced. This was why Isabella was so relentless. She wasn't just after revenge, but protecting her financial lifeline. Then we use it, Zoe said. We leak that she's about to lose everything. It'll force her to slip up. Ryan hesitated. It's risky. She'll come at us harder. Zoe met his gaze, her voice unwavering. Let her. I'm not running. They leaked the contract details to a trusted fashion blog, framing it as part of the ongoing investigation into Isabella's fraud. The response was immediate. Headlines, speculating about her downfall, flooded the internet, and her allies began to distance themselves. Zoe felt a surge of hope, but the weight of her decision tempered it. Milan was her dream, but New York was her battleground, and Ryan was her ally for better or worse. As the city lights glittered outside, Zoe made her choice. She'd stay and fight not just for her brand, but for herself. Ryan's sacrifice had shown her something real, and she wasn't ready to walk away from that, or the fire that had carried her this far. Isabella's next move was coming, but Zoe was ready, her resolve forged in the crucible of her own resilience. The New York fashion world was a battlefield, its glittering facade cracked by the scandal surrounding Isabella Reed. Zoe Parker's studio, scarred but standing, hummed with the quiet determination of her team as they prepared for a pivotal moment. The evidence against Isabella, emails, financial records, and the damning video of her orchestrating the studio break-in had been leaked to the press, turning the tide in Zoe's favor. Her Threads of Resilience collection was regaining traction, with buyers and sponsors returning as the headlines shifted. Isabella Reed, exposed plot to sabotage, rising designer unraveled. But Zoe knew better than to celebrate. Isabella was a cornered predator, and the anonymous threats, "Milan won't save you," still echoed in her mind. The fight wasn't over. Zoe stood at her drafting table, her hands steady as she adjusted a new design. A bold jacket with intricate embroidery that spoke of defiance. Her decision to stay in New York, rejecting the Milan residency for now, was a gamble, but it felt right. This was her city, her battle, and she wasn't running. Ryan Foster sat across the room, his laptop open to updates from his legal team. The authorities were closing in on Isabella, and the leaked contract tying her to Foster Couture's profits had rattled her allies. However, Zoe's trust in Ryan remained fragile, and his past mistakes with Isabella overshadowed their alliance. She set her sketch down, her voice firm. "Ryan, we're close, but I must know this ends now. Isabella's desperate, and desperate people don't just vanish. What's the plan?" Ryan looked up, his expression resolute. "The DAs are ready to press for fraud, conspiracy, and criminal mischief charges. The video's the clincher. It's airtight. But we need to make a public move to seal it. The industry's watching, and they need to see you take back your narrative." Zoe nodded, her mind racing. The Fashion Week season was winding down, but a major industry gala was scheduled tonight at the Plaza Hotel, a perfect stage. "I want to speak at the gala," she said. "Lay it all out. Isabella's schemes, the evidence, everything, no more hiding." Ryan's eyes flickered with concern. "It's a bold move, Zoe. She'll be there, and she won't go quietly. My team's got security in place, but you'll be exposed." Zoe's jaw tightened. "Good. Let her see me. I'm done playing defense." The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and the murmur of fashion's elite. Zoe wore a stunning gown from her collection, its deep indigo fabric cascading like a midnight sky, embroidered with gold threads that shimmered under the lights. Ryan stood beside her, his tuxedo sharp, his presence a steady anchor in the sea of whispers. The crowd parted as they entered, eyes lingering on Zoe, some with admiration, others with skepticism. The scandal had made her a lightning rod. Tonight she'd either solidify her place or lose it all. Isabella was there, her silver dress starkly contrasting with the room's warmth, her smile a mask of control. Zoe felt a chill as their eyes met, but held her ground. The gala's host, a veteran editor from Vogue, took the stage, introducing a segment for emerging designers. Zoe's name was called, and she stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "I'm Zoe Parker," she began, the microphone amplifying her words. "My brand, Threads of Resilience, is about strength, about telling stories through every stitch. But someone tried to silence that story. Isabella Reed stole my designs, trashed my studio, and spread lies to bury me. She thought she could break me, but she was wrong." The room erupted in gasps, cameras flashing. Isabella's face was stone, but her eyes burned with fury. Zoe pressed on, holding up her phone with the video cued. "This is the truth. Isabella Reed caught on tape, orchestrating the attack on my studio. Emails and financial records tie her to Vantage Holdings, a shell company that is funding her schemes. I'm standing here because my work, my voice matters, and no one gets to take that away." The video played on a massive screen behind her, Isabella's voice, clear as she gave orders to the masked figure. The crowd was silent, then erupted in murmurs. Zoe glanced at Ryan, who nodded, his expression of quiet pride. But before she could continue, Isabella stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is a farce," she said, her tone icy. "Ms. Parker is a pawn in Ryan Foster's games. He's using her to distract from his own corruption. Ask him about his deals and betrayals." Zoe's heart raced, but Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Enough, Isabella. The evidence is clear. You orchestrated this to settle an old score. I made mistakes with you, and I own that. But this," he gestured to the screen, "this is on you. The authorities have everything, and they're coming for you." The crowd parted as security approached Isabella, her composure cracking. She glared at Zoe, her voice low. "You'll regret this." But as she was escorted out, the room erupted in applause, not just for Zoe's courage, but for the truth laid bare. Zoe returned to the studio that night, her team celebrating around her. Amara hugged her, whispering, "You did it, Zoe. You took her down." But Zoe's relief was tempered by a lingering unease. Isabella was cornered, but cornered animals were dangerous. And Ryan's role, his past, his sacrifices still weighed on her. As the team dispersed, Ryan lingered, his eyes searching hers. "You were incredible tonight," he said. "I've never seen anyone stand up to this industry like that." Zoe's voice was soft but firm. "I had to. But Ryan, this doesn't erase what you did to Isabella. I need to know you're not just using me to fix your past." He stepped closer, his voice earnest. "I'm not. Zoe, what I feel for you, it's real. Not just your talent, but you. I've put everything on the line for you, and I'd do it again." Zoe's breath caught. The air between them crackled, and for a moment, she let herself see him. Not the billionaire, not the man with a shadowed past, but the one who'd fought beside her. She stepped forward, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was both a question and an answer. The crowd's applause, the gala's lights, the weight of the fight faded, leaving only them. When they pulled apart, Zoe's voice was steady. "This doesn't mean I'm staying, but I'm not running either. We finish this together." Ryan nodded, a smile breaking through. Together. The next morning, the headlines were triumphant. Zoe Parker clears. Name exposes industry titan. Isabella was under investigation, her allies scattering. Zoe's brand was soaring with orders flooding in, and the Milan house renewing its offer. But as she stood in her studio sketching a new piece, a text arrived from an unknown number. "She's gone, but the game's not over." Zoe's heart raced, but she pushed it aside. She'd faced the worst, and won. Whatever came next, she was ready. The Brooklyn studio was alive with possibility, its scars transformed into symbols of survival. Zoe Parker stood at the center of it all, her threads of resilience collection thriving, as orders poured in from across the globe. Isabella Reed's downfall was complete. The authorities had charged her with fraud and conspiracy, and the fashion world had turned its back on her. Her allies, once loyal, had vanished into the shadows, leaving her a pariah. Zoe's name was clear, her brand a beacon of triumph over adversity. The Milan residency offer remained, but Zoe had chosen to stay in New York, at least for now, to build on the momentum she'd fought so hard to earn. Ryan Foster was a constant presence, his support unwavering through the final days of the scandal. Their kiss at the gala had shifted something between them, a fragile trust, blossoming into something more profound. But Zoe kept her guard up, her heart cautious, even as her feelings grew. The anonymous text, "She's gone, but the game's not over," lingered in her mind, a reminder that the industry was never truly safe. Yet today was about celebration, not caution. Zoe and Ryan were set to unveil a new venture that would cement their legacy and reshape the future of fashion. The venue was a converted warehouse in Dumbo, its exposed beams and skylights a perfect backdrop for their announcement. Zoe wore a tailored jumpsuit from her collection, its bold geometric patterns a nod to her roots and vision. Ryan stood beside her, his suit sharp but understated, letting her take the spotlight. The crowd, designers, journalists, and industry leaders buzzed with anticipation. At the center of the room stood a banner, Parker Foster Design Academy. Zoe took the stage, her voice steady and clear. "Thank you all for being here. Today, Ryan Foster and I are launching the Parker Foster Design Academy, a school dedicated to nurturing new talent. This isn't just about fashion. It's about giving voices to those who've been overlooked, about building a future where creativity thrives without fear. My journey hasn't been easy, but it's taught me that resilience is more than surviving. It's about creating something that lasts." The crowd applauded, cameras flashing as Ryan joined her. Zoe's vision inspired this. He said, his tone warm but commanding. "I've seen what happens when this industry stifles talent, and I've been part of that problem. This academy is our commitment to change a place where designers like Zoe can shine without fighting the battles she did." The announcement was met with a standing ovation, and Zoe felt pride. The academy was her dream, But it was also a partnership, one she'd entered with eyes open. Ryan's past mistakes and role in Isabella's downfall still lingered, but his actions proved his commitment. The academy was their chance to build something new together. Zoe and Ryan slipped away to a quiet corner as the event wound down the city's skyline, glittering through the warehouse windows. He turned to her, his expression soft. "You were incredible up there." "This is just the beginning, Zoe." She smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in months. "We did this. But it's not just about us, the designers who come after." Ryan reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Zoe's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a delicate silver ring engraved with a tiny sewing needle, a symbol of her craft, her passion. "Zoe Parker," he said, his voice low. "You've changed my world. I want to build this future with you, not just the academy, but everything. Will you marry me?" Zoe's heart raced, 1,000 emotions colliding. The ring was perfect, a reflection of everything she was. But Ryan's eyes, earnest, unguarded, held her. She thought of the battles they'd fought, the trust they'd built, the love that had grown through it all. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with certainty. "Yes, I will." He slid the ring onto her finger, and they kissed, the world fading around them. The crowd's cheers, the academy's promise, and the weight of their victory all melted into this moment. For the first time, Zoe felt not just resilient, but whole. As the evening wound down, a young designer approached her, eyes wide with admiration. She said, "Ms. Parker, Mr. Foster, thank you," clutching a sketchbook. "Your academy, it's going to change everything for people like me." Zoe smiled, her hand resting on Ryan's arm. "That's why we're doing this. Keep creating, and don't let anyone stop you." The designer hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I heard something about Isabella. They say she's gone, but there are rumors, secrets she left behind, designs she stole from others. You might want to look into it." Zoe's heart skipped a beat, the anonymous text flashing in her mind. Ryan's grip on her hand tightened, his expression darkening. "We'll handle it," he said, his voice steady. "Thank you." As the designer walked away, Zoe turned to Ryan, her resolve unbroken. "If there's more to this, we'll face it together." He nodded, his eyes locked on hers. "Always." The night ended with the city's lights stretching before them, a canvas of possibility. Zoe's brand was soaring, her love with Ryan was a new beginning, and the academy was a beacon for the future. But the whisper of Isabella's secrets lingered, a thread yet to be unraveled. Whatever came next, Zoe was ready, her resilience, passion, and story stronger than ever.